It's Jim Hutchins for the Jerusalem Connection Spot Report for this week. An issue that's getting increased visibility, not only in the United States, but around the world and in Israel as well, is the whole issue of the protests that are taking place on Wall Street in New York City. These protests are made up primarily of what appears to be a very unruly mob of anarchists, socialists, Marxists, anti-American people, anti-capitalists certainly. It's supposed to be directed against corporate greed. But there is a stench emerging from these protests. And it's not only the stench of human waste, which is pervasive on Wall Street and Lower Manhattan, but it's the stench of anti-Semitism. Several weeks ago I noted that the very likely result of these protests would be a focus on Jews as responsible for it. I'm reading from Ryan Jones, who lives in Israel, and he's a believer and writes an article, regular articles for Israel Today. He said this: from the 13th century expulsion of England's Jews to the 19th century Russian pogroms to the Nazi Holocaust, sour economic conditions have historically formed the backdrop for rising anti-Semitism. And that's certainly true today. It's rising all over the world, and the protests are giving an impetus to this anti-Semitism. One protester said, "I think the Zionist Jews who are running these big banks in our Federal Reserve, which is not run by the federal government, they need to run these people out of this country." Another protester said, "A small ethnic group constitutes almost all of the hedge fund managers and bankers on Wall Street. They're all Jewish. There is a conspiracy in this country where Jews control the media, the finances. They have pooled their money together in order to take control of this country, the United States." This is not going to end shortly. Unfortunately, Mayor Bloomberg of New York has made a strategic error in not stopping this weeks ago. And he will no doubt, as a Jew, be blamed for the negative results that come out of these protests. But even more to the point, one observer says, "It is the lack of a clear and firm repudiation of their hateful rhetoric by the mainstream American media and political leaders that has a growing number of Israelis and Jews on edge." My friends, it's going to get worse before it gets better. The scriptures indicate that prior to the Messiah's coming, prior to the return of Jesus, all the world will be gathered against Israel and the Jewish people. And that means only the people who will stand with them will be Christians. Christians who have a full understanding of the teaching of the Bible with regard to the descendants of Abraham. Christians who have a full appreciation for the covenant promises of God that are as valid today as when they were given. They are eternal and irrevocable. In the days ahead, Christians are going to have to stand with Jews, very likely to the point of giving their lives. But God will give grace for that which He calls us to do. So until next week, Od Yavo Shiloh, or until Messiah comes, Shalom Aleichem.